Hello, people. Welcome and thank you for tuning in for this week's edition of Bettery Hub Channel's professional series live chats, your weekly dose of transformative business ideas and solutions, where we bring you business leaders, industry experts, and game changers who are making the difference and impact in their respective industries, locally and globally. So stay tuned and engage with us to learn how these leaders got to where they are today and discover, I'll say, the X factor. I'm your host, Sakti, certified and qualified to bring you satisfaction and a whole lot of action with our guest speakers for the next 1 hour or so. So today, I'm extremely excited. We've got someone live from Hong Kong. Yes, Hong Kong. And that's what I love technology about. I could be in the comforts of my office or at home, but I'm talking to someone who's like way off, away, not even in our same country. So I think that's the beauty of technology, and that's what it's done for us. So let's talk about our guest speaker, Benson Lau. Now, he's the co-founder and the chief strategy officer of Zencode, a co-producer of Failcon Hong Kong, and he's a committee member of the Hong Kong Startup Support Group, committee member of the social contribution at Business Leaders Who Care. Now, a bit more on Benson. Now, he has helped grow Zencode from a humble beginning to 4 offices in Asia with over 80 staff for the last 5 years. Believe it or not, for the last 5 years, And he has an extensive experience in developing web and mobile applications and artificial neural networks with offshore teams. Now, his recent activities for Zencode include investing in startups through Code for Equity program, facilitating Silicon Valley's Failcon event in Hong Kong to foster innovation. Definitely something that we're going to ask Benson a lot about. And fundraising for startups, engaging and growing the first decentralized startup committee in Hong Kong. They have about more than 100 plus members and driving social impact through technology. Now, Benson is a tech consultant for investment offices in Hong Kong and Singapore to validate technology, especially in AI and application. Benson is frequently invited to speak on the future of AI and how it will shape our economies by different organizations in Hong Kong. Benson serves on the committee for Hong Kong Startup Support Group and committee for the Business Leaders Who Care, as I mentioned. And Benson also supports charities and social enterprises through pro bono IT consulting and subsidized development services. And he originally hails from Singapore and Sydney, Australia. So without any delay, let's bring on Benson. Hey, Benson.
Hello, Lehoma.
Benson, live from Hong Kong. Thank you so much, to join us amidst your busy schedule, Benson.
No worries. Thanks so much, Sakti, for that introduction. It's great being here.
Yeah, it's my honor, to have you here. And as you know, we were just talking about this just prior to the live chat that there's major nominations going on in Singapore. So a lot of them have been tuned in on their social media platforms and so on. But nevertheless, for me, I think my excitement today is having you on our live chat. So really thanks a lot, Benson, once again for joining us. And again, also to our viewers, thank you so much for each and every one of you to join us. And I would like to strongly urge, just engage Benson as we go on through our Bettery Lab Facebook page. Ask questions, just feel free to engage Benson, and Benson will be more than happy to, answer your questions. And with that, so Benson, so how's things at Hong Kong?
Yeah, interesting times. You caught me at an interesting moment. Today, I guess there was some news, so we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. It's been an interesting 12 months, a roller coaster journey in Hong Kong.
Yes, agreed. In fact, especially in Hong Kong, there have been, before COVID-19, there was a bit of, challenges going on. So I think that'll be interesting to hear from you, how you face those challenges and so on. And if you're saying that there's a new news or latest news in Hong Kong, I believe it's interesting. It should be exciting. So, and as you said, I just leave it as it is. And, we'll have that more during our own personal chat itself. And now let's talk about yourself, Benson, your journey behind your current success.
Yep. Sure. First, I wouldn't call myself successful at the moment. I call myself a learning, aspiring still. I still learn from a lot of different people and I still fail a lot. But I think part of that is really transforming yourself each time you get through a mistake, learning that mistake and making sure you don't get the same mistake twice, and then keep building upon that. I guess when we first started 5 years ago, we were a really small team. I mean, we had like 10 guys, a few of them based out of a house in Chennai, like a literal house.
Wow. Okay.
And then they were seated in the house, and we had all the tables in the house. And since then, we've moved to offices, and then we had to speak to larger clients. And each step of the way, you still learn. But at the end of the day, I think really it's all about teams, right? And that's what we learned about, right? People, how to coordinate people, and so on.
Yeah, and it's always interesting, when I speak to business owners and they talk, when they recollect or reflect upon their years before when they just start up, the stories like this, we started with limited resources, and it's amazing, right? Even in your case, startup, from offices or from home, and then you grow up to a company, 4 different countries and so on. So it's definitely a lot more that we can actually learn from you. Maybe Benson, about yourself, your journey, as a business owner, and what inspired you to be one,
Sure. I think I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur since young. I mean, remember selling little biscuits to people when I was younger, and then creating that sort of business, selling chocolates and so on, and then moving on from there. But I think the crux of it really was when I was in a compliance job. It was interesting to an extent, but I created a little software that could replace me in maybe 10 years' time, right? So I thought, hey, if I continue down this path, it's not going to lead much. So I decided to step out and start the entrepreneur journey from there. So it's really about technology. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been, having this entrepreneurship spirit and blood since young, right? You're saying you sold chocolates, and sometimes these are the small little experiences that come a long way, when we move on in life. And why technology? Is it because of your love or because of your initial exposure?
Yeah,
Benson?
Definitely initial exposure, but I've always loved technology, always been keeping abreast of it. I remember from young, watching a show in Australia called Beyond 2000. Talking about technology, right? But yeah, creating that little software whilst I was in compliance, and then realizing the power of technology, and seeing how, hey, in the next 10 or 20 years, AI will really come and take over. So I wanted to be part of that wave rather than being pulled by that wave. So that's why I decided to step out. Yeah.
Right. And Benson, you were saying that you started in do you actually start up your job before going into the entrepreneur journey in the technology industry, IT industry, or was something different?
Yeah, something different. I mean, part of my education, I'm an engineer also by training, but also I never went into engineering at all. For engineers, but really jumping straight into technology, but with the understanding of programming, understanding of what is needed. And it's quite easy to learn nowadays. I mean, there's so many code academy schools, code school IO. You can easily log on, and within 2 months, 3 months, you've got some basic understanding of programming. It's not too hard. The difficulty comes with solutions and matching that technology back to the solution that the customer needs. My business analyst background also helped, because when you pull that business requirement back to the technology, that's when it really comes together.
Yeah. And so I believe that's when you started Zencode itself. So let's talk about Zencode itself. Maybe you want to talk about tell us more about what Zencode does and your beginning.
Yeah, sure. I mean, really, we're a software development company, but now we're doing more consultancy as well as AI services. So we started out in just doing websites, right? I think it's quite backbone of the internet. We moved into mobile application development. And then further down the line, we started an AI lab in Bangalore. And then since then, we've been trying to offer more AI services to enterprise clients. But we also realize SME clients also need the same services. So we also have solutions that we cater to them. And then we've since also expanded to Hong Kong in the past 2 years and really tried to get our foothold in the Hong Kong market. But along the way, we've really seen a lot of startup founders grow, some, of course, not grow, SME owners having changes in their company, and I think they're better for it now because of COVID-19 came, and luckily some of those things were in place. But yeah, it's digital transformation. I think we've discovered is not a one-off, and it continues to be an improvement, and it continues to need to think about AI more and more in that digital transformation journey.
Right. And what's your role, Benson, in as a CSO, Chief Strategy Officer? What's your role that you play in Zencode?
Sure. I mean, we see hundreds of vendors, right, every year.
Yeah.
With different solutions. We also see lots of technology coming around the horizon. But the key question is what actually makes sense in the business world. Some technology is not commercial, it's not ready for commercialization, it's not ready for real business cases. And so my job is really to figure out, hey, what would work best in our current environment and the immediate first 1 year, right? I'm sure if we just look at AI and say, AI is going to take over everything, but how long will that take? So what small portion of AI can we implement now in the current business for a business owner to see immediate benefit? And that's where I have to think about it and figure out what fits. That's really one of the things.
And does it change depending on the location you are? I mean, for example, the culture, the business culture in Singapore, I'm sure it's definitely different from how is it in Hong Kong. So, for you, I mean, as much as maybe the services and the products that Zencode offer may be similar, but I believe that the way you're approached your customers will definitely be different. So are you the one who specifically looks into these areas as well?
Yeah. So I look into the different ways of telling the message or creating the events. So we notice in Hong Kong, it's more event driven. I think if you're in Singapore, if events when you go to are typically smaller, but in Hong Kong, the events could be like 50 to 100 people every week, right? Those kinds of people.
Right.
And then at the same time, it's about how to bring value in the conversation, in discussions to people in Hong Kong, rather than in Singapore, coming with a solution and going, hey, here's the solution. This is the direct thing that will fit your company. It's two very different mindsets. Yeah.
Yeah. So apart from Hong Kong and Singapore, where are the other two offices that Zencode have?
Yeah. So one in Chennai.
Chennai. Okay.
And the other one in Bangalore.
Okay. So you have two offices in India and one in Hong Kong and Singapore. And I believe over there in India, I think the culture will definitely be much more different from Singapore and Hong Kong itself, I believe.
Oh, yes. I think that was one of the learning journeys when we first started. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And for yourself, when you were involved in India, was it was the culture and the language barrier a big issue for you? Do you find it a big challenge?
I found it interesting at first. I mean, the first time I landed in Chennai, my first experience was with immigration. And I got to say, that was one of the experiences that made me think, oh my God, what am I in for? It took 2.5 hours to pass immigration, getting off the plane. And then getting into the crowd and getting a taxi was another experience. That kind of mindset you don't think about until you arrive in India. Right?
Yeah.
Then you realize, oh, okay, that's the culture I have to work around and figure out how to work with, and then work from there. Yeah.
And what inspired you, Benson? I mean, you started in Singapore, and what inspired you to go regional?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely saw that we were too reliant on just one market. But at the same time, I also got married to a Hong Kong lady in Hong Kong.
Ah, okay.
So I also thought, okay, it's a good time to go to Hong Kong and get settled there, as well as set up the company here. Similar market, but also very different. When I first came to Hong Kong, I thought it's the same, but it's totally not the same. Maybe I can use an analogy here to give a mindset difference. So in Singapore and Hong Kong, we both have road signs. In Singapore, when you drive, if you see a U-turn sign, and that's where you can do a U-turn. Right? The government says you can do a U-turn here, so you can do a U-turn.
Yeah.
In Hong Kong, until you see a no U-turn sign, you can do a U-turn anywhere.
That's a big difference.
Totally different, right? You see people just try to do random U-turns, and then there's road signs everywhere. So yeah, it's quite funny.
So it's interesting, right? I mean, until you are told you can't do it, you are still okay to do it, so long as you find your way. And okay, that's interesting. Definitely a way different culture than what we have over here, and I think that would have been interesting. I think something that I think as a business owner, I think you should have seen a bit more opportunities in the change of that kind of culture, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I straddle across three sort of cultures and cities, right?
Yeah.
Even in India, what road signs, right? That's another another mindset entirely.
Yeah.
But adjusting to that, understanding that, I think that's how you succeed. Really understanding people.
And Benson, when you engage your customers, what is the value proposition, or the value that your clients get from Zencode?
Sure. I mean, I think what we've found is a lot of SME owners really value our input. SME owners understand that technology is there, but what in technology needs to be there. And because of our experience with the various brands like TBS, Telstra, Aon, ST Engineering, etc., when we speak to SME owners, we understand from a big enterprise, but how do we consolidate that back to the SME, and how do we approach the SME to solve their issues on a scale that fits them, right? You have a 1,000 man company versus a 10-man company. The solution is totally different. And I think our value add is that consultative approach, really understanding the business side of things, not just the technology, but the business side, and then applying technology to it, not the other way around.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely true. As we know, digital transformation has been a buzzword for the last few years.
Exactly.
We've been hearing that word, and of course, I think one thing that I learned from a lot of people is that it's not about just digitalizing processes, but it's about what you do, or how you make use of technology to help you to do your business better, to be more efficient for your clients, and so on. So I think, so in this case, Zencode, do you actually sit down and work with your clients closely prior to even coming up with any solutions for them?
Yeah, I mean, at the start, it's really about understanding the client. So even on the first conversation we have, we would speak with them, understand their business totally, understand their processes, understand the people involved. And then from that high level, we'll be able to figure out, hey, what's the solution that fits best in this scenario with their current systems that are already there. Right? We're not there to totally reinvent the wheel all the time. SMEs can't do that. But SME can improve on that in the iterative process. Right? Yeah, that's what we do.
And Benson, just like myself, I'm a business owner. Our viewers, a lot of them who have been getting in touch with us for the last, for the start of this live chat, they are business owners out there. So, assuming in layman terms, if let's say they said, hey, I would like to engage Zencode, so what can I benefit? So maybe you can share with us, what are some benefits that your clients, or as your clients, companies and business owners can get?
Sure. I mean, maybe I can talk in terms of some case studies of clients.
Yes, please. Yeah, that'll be great.
So, like, we had a logistics company running with a warehouse. It had like a 6-floor warehouse in Jurong, but it was running everything through Excel spreadsheets and trying to coordinate drivers, containers coming in, people, as well as fulfillment orders back to clients, right? And then as well as the customers keep saying, "What's my inventory level? What's my inventory level?" And they would have to take 1 or 2 days to figure that out. But when we went in, we tried to understand, hey, it's not just an inventory system. You also have to coordinate the drivers. You also have to coordinate the schedules so that you know how to maximize your warehouse, especially different types of pallets, different types of shelving, all of that. You really have to get into detail to understand that. If it's a normal development company, I think they just sort of like an inventory system for your warehouse, put shelves. Item goes on shelf A. But us is more like, okay, items come in different shapes and sizes. Some are cold storage, some can be seated in normal warehouses. Different shipping patterns, pickup dates as well. And so once we understood the system we thought about was more along the lines of coordinating all the different stakeholders rather than just the inventory system. And that's the kind of thing that we do with clients. Another one was a startup, talking with them, becoming more like the product owner, and helping them to develop their product idea into an actual working commercial product. And then that helped them to get into the App Store. And I think they're now a Series A, which is great. See get further rounds of funding. Yeah, that's COVID. Great situation for startup.
Definitely. And so in this case, maybe making use of the first example or case study that you said. So how long was the process, when approximately, the time when you started talking to them, understanding their operations, and then, I'm sure there'll be a certain level of agreement that, okay, these are the issues that we have on the ground, and let's prioritize which are the important ones we want to solve, or we want to use technology to come in. So how long was the process until to the point where it was implemented?
Sure. I mean, from the first week or so, we already kind of have the high level understanding and a high level scoping. And once the client's okay on that quotation, then we would start working on the business scoping and the functional requirements. That usually takes, depending from the client to client, anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months, right? If it's a really large client, that's what you kind of expect. And then after that, development usually takes 3 to 4 months per phase. And of course, some projects are multi-month type of projects. But after that, you would be able to see some result within each phase and then deploy it to your clients. So usually, I'd say all in all, projects anywhere take from 3 months to 9 months, really depending on the type of project.
And that's interesting because as we said, right, previously business owners were, they were quite reluctant. I won't say reluctant. They were very comfortable with the traditional ways of doing things. Why change things that works? Unless there's a need to. But I think COVID-19 situation has changed that a lot. Where a lot of businesses they don't have the luxury of having a choice, but it's either you move on, you change. So in this case, right, but let's talk about a bit on the mindset itself. Not only for business owners, even for individuals, the right mindset to achieve their aspirations and goals. We can also make it more towards their businesses, their business goals and so on. So what is the kind of mindset that you think is important?
Yeah, definitely. Being a business owner is tough. There's no nice thing to say about it. Every day is a challenge and there's massive ups and downs. Right? One day you could get a big sign up about a client, then at the same time you have a client having concerns and raising that with you, so up and down. One day you could have cash flow, and the next day you could have a lot of funding, and now you're trying to figure out how to deliver all the projects at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, every day is a challenge. I think the mindset is really about knowing that you overcome that,
Hmm.
knowing that if you are resilient and focused enough, you will solve each problem at its source, and then be able to move on. So you just see as each thing as a task. Ticket, move on. Ticket, move on. At the same time, have a macro view, but don't forget you also, as a business owner, have to be in the micro level too. To make sure those tasks are done, and then move on. Delegate as much as you can and grow the people that you delegate to. Try to get them to take more responsibility, but empower them. That's the important part. Giving them responsibility without empowerment is pointless, really. And at the same time, that mindset to grow teams, overcome issues is something that I think a successful business owner team did. To keep moving and go forward to their goals.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Benson, okay, all right. So you're talking about growing your people and having the right mindset. Now let's talk about maybe a bit on the mindset of the need for digitalization. I mean, since
Sure.
we were at the topic. Currently, what do you see? What is the key mindset or right mindset that business owners have or must have when they think about, hey, it's time for me to digitalize. It's time for me to have a transformation. So what is the kind of mindset they should have?
Yeah, they definitely should have the mindset to go, hey, Industry 4.0 is coming out. In case you haven't read that book, it's by the former World Bank chief, and he wrote a book about Industry 4.0 as the next industrial revolution. Don't think it's coming in the next 30 years. It's not that. COVID-19 has accelerated its oncoming. Retail shops have GNC just filed for bankruptcy, for instance, that health food supplement store. This is the new normal. So if you're not having the mindset to change at its core of your business, where digital processes are at the core of your business, then you would only be applying a surface layer treatment, and then the rust will start to come through. It's like any car, right? You have
Yeah.
the steel, and then if you don't surface treat the steel and you don't do it at the factory, no matter how many times you surface treat the steel, it will still rust.
Yeah.
So at the same time, your business needs that digital transformation mindset from the business owner at the core of your business operations to really drive that. Everything from your initial customer inquiry, business lead, all the way to your actual delivery notifications. Nothing should take place without that digital mindset. So I think that having that understanding that urgency, that digital transformation needs to happen now rather than later, that should be the mindset. Yeah.
And I believe, Benson, in your experience, what you do, you talk to a lot of business owners, startup business owners, and even companies that's been running over time, looking for
Yep.
expansion and so on. So, do you still have such issues where where business owners still don't have the right mindset when they come to you asking, hey, should I transform, or should I start my journey for transformation towards digitalizing the processes and so on? Do you still have that kind of issues or challenges?
I think definitely. Um, I mean, when you're doing a business for 30 years or 40 years, it's hard to realize that there's a change coming that could transform that big. I mean, they would have lived through riots, massive economic crisis, and survived them. The business has survived them. Um, but when you tell them about digital, they just go, "Oh, is that the iPhone?" Right? For some of these types of business owners, so it's really education for them. But for newer businesses, like 5 to 10 years, I think it's much easier to speak to them about digital transformation
Mm.
because they're still growing, they're still moving. So I think that's the big difference is whether you're entrenched or whether you are still growing your market share.
Mm.
You would have a different mindset there as well. Yeah.
And we talked about the current COVID-19 situation, and I think Hong Kong would have been a bit different because I think as we mentioned, even prior to COVID-19, there were some challenges, the riots and so on. Of course, we're not going to go into the details, but as a business owner, what are the challenges that you face, and what is your take for the way ahead for the new normal?
Sure. I mean, for us, some of the meetings were impacted. Like at night, you couldn't take meetings because you wouldn't know if you couldn't get back on time and so on. And so you had to delay those. And at the same time, during the day, some of the meetings were impacted. And then that's when we started to use some Zoom teleconferencing. But we were still very much reliant on face-to-face, sure. And I think some of the big countries fighting against each other and trade wars was really an impact to Hong Kong as well. But again, reaching out to different markets through digital means and engaging clients in different time zones from Hong Kong, that also helped. But also being able to see that within each obstacle is an opportunity, and having that mindset, I think that's what makes Hong Kong very unique that way. And it's still a place I'd like to do business in because people have that mindset. During adversity, they're just very stronger. They don't take it lying down. They just go, okay, I'm going to figure out how to change. And I think as business owners, we need to adopt that mindset.
And I think in a way it was to your advantage, I believe, for those business owners who, prior to COVID-19, I think, like what you mentioned, they already started using some of the digital platforms like Zoom and non-face-to-face tools that were available out there. So I guess when they know that they can't make a face-to-face meetup, they are much more familiar rather than starting from ground zero. So I believe that could have been, in a way, an advantage for them. And now let's talk about maybe, the action plans that you took to stabilize and to transform your business during that phase.
Sure. I always found it helpful reading a lot of different books. So I read like Ray Dalio's Principles, and that really helped me to condense my thoughts during the challenge. Understanding that my business has a core principle and everything else is negotiable. Everything else is about processes, and I can adjust those. That's fine. That's not my business. That's not the core of my business. So during those challenges, really going, okay, reaching out to these books, reaching out to people, understanding from people what they were doing, understanding what some mentors, yes, the other important thing is really have some mentors.
Right.
Because those mentors have many more years of experience than you, and they probably experienced something in a different form, but they can give you advice and perspectives, right? So reaching out to them as well, and then realizing, okay, getting all this knowledge, now I know what I should do, and then implementing that. And that's the other hard part, right? How do you implement a change in strategy whilst getting the buy-in from different people in your organization, and then at the same time having people grow together on that new path? I think that's the other key thing, because quite often you could say, okay, this is a top-down decision, but whether people actually get and understand that is another issue. They may implement it. So your beautiful idea may not be implemented without buy-in. So challenge comes from external, but the response comes from all different levels of the organization.
I mean, talking about this, and two things that hit me when you talk about mentors. Now, first of all, one of the key things that I realized, like what you said, Benson, is true, that it is important to always have somebody, who have much more experience, talk to them In fact, this live chat Bettery Hub live chat channel started up because we realized that not only us, like for me, every time I have a conversation with any of our guests, I'm learning a lot. Immediately after live chat, I'm doing a lot of reflections from whatever I spoke about, and I realized there's so much for me to learn, and I also, we realized that we can share that using the social media platform. And apart from that, yeah, it is important, definitely for individuals or business owners to look for the right mentor or the right person to look up for advice, for direction, for guidance. I think that's the key. And interestingly, I also realized that there were also a lot of opportunities for collaboration during this challenging time. Business coming together, and they talk about, collaborating or cross-pollination, learning from each other, getting solutions. And I guess this is where, we will be talking more in the next part where, you have your Failcon and so on. So I think that's something that I personally found that was really interesting to understand from another business owner's point of view, his challenges, his good practices and so on. Now, the second part that I would like to ask you, Benson, is, you see, right now, businesses know that, hey, I got to do a business transformation, I got to enhance my capabilities. But the biggest challenge they will have is, can the people on the ground, because no technology is useful, or it's very useful based on the people behind the technology, right? There are some that, replaces people, but there are some that you need someone to operate it. So in this case, the biggest challenge, or do you see business owners having challenges as a response from their staff to say, hey, why am I doing something different? I've been using, like your first case study, I've been using Excel sheet to do my job, and now you expect me to learn something new, after doing this for like 20, 30 years, and why should I be doing this? Are these challenges that you see that business owners get while they're transforming?
Definitely. I mean, organizations of all sizes have the same challenge: getting buy-in, helping people understand why this change is needed, and then getting that buy-in before they start implementing the digital transformation.
Right.
I'd say there's two key differences in technology. One is human augmentation, and the other one's human replacement. Some tasks are really repetitive and can be replaced by some sort of system, right?
Yeah.
For instance, if I have someone helping me schedule my meetings, actually an AI can take over that every day. And that person can then also do other things at the same time, which are less manual work and more high-level thinking type work, where the human being has a better mind than a computer is. I think right now AI is at a point where it can have that depth. It's very narrow. It goes very deep, but it's very, very narrow. Most human minds are very abstract, right? We take more in a horizontal and then try to link all the dots together and apply that. And so the marriage between these two is important for business owner to understand in their digital transformation process. What are some tasks that are can be augmented with a human, where you present the human with the data and they can use their mind to process and apply and then think about how to solve that. For instance, like if I were to have a customer call center, I can have an AI triage all of the priority items based on some keywords and how angry someone is in that email or whatever on the call. But at the same time, only the human being can really solve the problem because human problems are so complex.
Yes.
So rather than having someone ask all the questions, hey, what's the problem, what's this, what's that, the AI can ask that and then the human can solve. I think that will save a lot of time. At the same time, the human being will be there to augment it. So things like that in the digital transformation process is important.
Yeah, interesting. So, so to go back to what Zencode actually the benefits of that. So this is also some of these things that Zencode, when businesses come to you, where you try to tell them that these are the proposed things, or where AI can be used or technology can be used. Do you all actually help your business owners to understand this portion according to their businesses?
Yeah, we try to. Sometimes it's not too easy. Because at the moment, the understanding of AI is also not public domain. I mean, yes, we understand AI is there, but actually AI is at the level of a year 3 or year 5 or 3-year-old, right? So it's really not nuanced enough to do the type of things that you expect it to do. So all of the Skynet, all of that is not happening anytime soon.
Right.
But it can do pre-programmed things really, really well over and over again. So educating people to that first, and then helping them understand, okay, AI has a limitation at the current moment, and this is where it can apply. After that, someone else has to take over. Otherwise, they'll think AI can go throughout the whole process. And that happen. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Thanks, Benson. And right now that we talked about challenges and so on, now what do you think is the importance for business owners to unlearn and relearn, to continually upgrade their knowledge, their skills, to adapt and transform? What are your thoughts on this?
Wow. Okay, so I'd say drop all preconceived notion, right? And don't put everything in a box. I think human beings, it's easy for us to categorize things in boxes, so that it's easy for us to categorize in our minds. But in the future, with the way AI can be applied and how human beings will interact, you have to think, hey, how am I going to adjust myself in that type of atmosphere? So I must open all my boxes. I must have no preconceived ideas and notions, and be very open-minded to things. So I think it's more of a mindset rather than specific things that you need to unlearn and learn. But yeah, if you look at it on a base level in terms of technology, you can stop looking at Excel as the core of your business, right? That's something to unlearn right now. But to relearn Power BI, perhaps, right, in Microsoft's environment ecosystem, where you can then go, okay, how do I get to that using Microsoft Office 365? Right? Or how do I get my customers to input things to me rather than me calling them all the time? That mindset of the interaction as well, customer and everything. That's why I say everything needs to be unlearned, everything needs to be relearned, because actually digital transformation applies everywhere. Specific skill sets.
All right. And maybe you can tell us more about your code for equity program.
Sure.
More of that. How it helps in terms of learning for business owners.
Sure. I mean, our code for equity is really more for startups. It's actually where we do some coding work for equity with startups. Of course, it's not full equity. We also cover our costs, but everything additional we would put into equity. So our profits are actually in equity in the company. And we would select the startup for that. We won't invest in every startup until there's some level of traction so that we can see where they're going. And we also help them with the matching to investors, matching to businesses, if they have a B2B sort of business case, and then bring them forwards from there. It's high risk, I would say, for sure, with every startup. But yeah, it's interesting because the innovation that these startups do and the disruption I try to bring. So the business model mindset is completely changed as well.
Right. And what about how does a Failcon event in Hong Kong? I'm interested to know, because I'm a strong believer that we will definitely be going into the topic of failure or failing. But I think before that, how does that help business owners? Your event, Failcon event.
I think Failcon for me was really a passion event, and also something that I wanted to bring to Hong Kong, because Hong Kong was a few years behind Singapore in terms of innovation. And this was a city that was usually the one that was a few years ahead of Singapore in innovation. So that mindset of failure is very present in Silicon Valley. Whether you think it's a very successful place, actually everyone has a mindset that failure can be overcome and move on. I think the key difference that I see in Asia and Silicon Valley is this. Investors invest in a startup founder that has failed a few times in Silicon Valley because they feel like this guy's learned and has experienced failure and overcome it, willing enough to start another business. Whereas in Asia, if someone fails, they go, okay, this guy's not investable, and then move on there. So it's a mindset difference from Silicon Valley that I wanted to bring to Hong Kong. That only through overcoming failure can you achieve success. And this event was really, it's been held in 29 cities around the world. Was held in Singapore in 2010 before, but it hasn't been held since. And I think having that event in Hong Kong, I wanted to bring overseas speakers to the event as well, so that they could apply that learning and knowledge. So I asked the financial secretary of Hong Kong to speak, the ex-financial secretary of Hong Kong to speak. And he was very willing and happy to, and really happy for him to do that. I'm glad that he did it. And the reason I wanted that someone from the government, was so that people would understand, hey, even someone from the government would think about failure, right? How to overcome that. And having that right mindset around failure, I think that was important. But also bringing organizations, speakers from Theranos. Theranos, I'm not sure people know, is the one that had a $9 billion scam in Silicon Valley, where one drop of blood could be used to test a variety of things. And the founder, Elizabeth Holmes, was found guilty of a few things. It was like a massive scandal. So at that time, Bad Blood had been released. Netflix, HBO had both released their documentaries. And the speaker, Erica Chung, who was one of the whistleblowers at Theranos, actually happened to be in Hong Kong at that time. And she spoke about a few things that made me think, oh, okay, every organization could have this, but you don't know, right?
Yeah.
One of the key lessons was compartmentalization. So the reason Theranos really failed was because everyone didn't know what everyone else was doing. It was so secret that a guy in one lab would be having one passcode, and next door another lab has another passcode, and no one knows what the other lab's doing. Because of that, they were able to keep from the public and hide the fact that actually none of the tests were working on the machine, as in it could only work on a small batch of tests, and definitely not what they advertised. And they were actually running across a wide variety of commercial machines bought from Siemens and various manufacturers to run their tests. And that secrecy and that organizational compartmentalization is something I learned from there. And from John Tang, the financial secretary, he pivoted from being an architect student to being the chief financial secretary of Hong Kong. I mean, that's an amazing thing, right? Across from architect to government servant to that. And then he contested in the chief executive election, but but how he pivoted from that experience to starting a non-profit and trying to educate Hong Kong youth for the next, again, another pivot, right? So mindset of pivoting is not that you accept the failure, is that you go, okay, I'm learning from this and I need to keep moving forwards. So failing forwards is important. And I think the whole event really, I learned that failure is not the end. Failure is just a step in the many such failure type journey. Even now, there's this founder that's speaking at the event who had just closed his $9 million founded Gobi Bikes, which was a bicycle sharing company in Hong Kong. And he had burnt through all the money within 18 months. And then couldn't get the next round, so that was great. He then went on to do an MBA. He then went on to be a CTO of an award-winning financial tech company, and then now he's in another thing, starting another company. I think that mindset is something that we're missing in the business owner's mindset. We think, hey, appearances matter, but appearances don't matter in the long run. What you learn matters in the long run. I think that's what we're really learning from Failcon.
It's amazing, I always felt, when I first heard about Failcon, I was like amazed, in fact excited to know that, we have, the amount of knowledge that's being shared. I always believe, as we talked about, failures are the best teachers.
Yes.
Right? And since young, we have been hearing, whether it's our teachers or anyone saying, you can fail, but you may not want to be, you have planned to fail, but never lose the lessons, when that happens. And in this case, to have an event to make sure that these lessons are being shared, I think it's excellent. I think this is really good. And in that perspective, I believe that Benson, that you are a strong believer that, failures are the a good way to learn. So any specific experience that you had, your own personal experience in terms of, something that, failures has brought you a learning lesson that has brought you a long way?
Sure. Definitely 7Tune, which was something I started before. I started it whilst I was still working, and really as a hobby. It was a Facebook page, really just talking about cars. So I really like car racing. And at that time, Fast and Furious was releasing, and it was coming to Fast and Furious 3. And so there was a sudden uptick in people's interest in this sort of very niche subculture. At that point, I thought, hey, actually, can we make this into a business? Long answers, no. I mean, short answers, no. It's not possible. Long answer is, I started the company and had a co-founder, and working with co-founders is something I learned about quite massively in this venture. We had reached 350,000 fans on Facebook.
Wow.
We had 1.5 million page visits on the website. So we had the traffic, we just couldn't convert the traffic. Something monetary. So at that point, I had to really think, okay, this is not working. And then had to take a step back and then go, okay, I think it's time to move on, move into the next thing. And I was trying to persist before that for at least 2 years, but it was really difficult to try and figure out how to monetize this, how to make it work. It's a community, but you can't just take money from a community. You have to figure out what to give to the community.
Yeah.
So some of the things I learned were have the right co-founder with the right mission together. If you guys have two very different missions, or you think, yeah, we can somehow make that work, it's not going to work. Definitely, you have to be on the same page. The other thing is trying to figure out your business model from the start. That's also important. Yes, you can build all the traffic you want, but if it's not leading to a product, then it's also not going to lead anywhere. Converse is also true. Building a great product without the traffic or the leads also is pointless. So both sides you need to think about before starting something. And also the community and understanding the community base or your customer base is also really important. That ecosystem understanding is the difference between banging your head against the wall 10 times or using a fine-tooth chisel and then hammering at the right spot in the wall. And I think those are some of the lessons I learned from that failure that I brought into Zencode.
Great. And as much as we do not want to have painful lessons to be learned, but again, I think it is essential that some of these lessons, sometimes, and I guess this is one key reason why I can see, in Silicon Valley, they would rather, invest in companies that have went through a couple of failures. It's like these lessons stay and stick with you. it's like something that is just at the back of the head because you remember those. Sometimes we tend to remember those lessons that comes from failures, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that sticks with us. And just to move on in terms of this, there's a question that we have from Iskandar. Thanks, Iskandar, for joining us. I think the question is more specific to Zencode. Let me read it up. Thank you for the insights, Benson. What's Zencode's plan for the next 2 years in terms of being the trailblazing technology company?
Sure. I mean, definitely AI. We're going to find more solutions, but we're not going to generalize AI. We're going to find specific targeted AI solutions for specific problems and bring them together for different people in different companies. So for the next 2 years, our focus is really on the AI front, as well as um, thinking about low code or no code and moving towards that as well. Understanding that our value add is not just the programming, but also the business and marrying the business to the technology.
Mm.
So I think the next 2 years is quite crucial for Zencode as programming becomes less relevant and actual technology implementation becomes much more relevant.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. And I hope that answers your question, Iskandar. Thank you for asking us the question. Thank you so much. And we'll move on. So, Benson, what would you like to be remembered for, in years to come?
Sure. I mean, I'd really like to, um, yeah, be remembered for some social impact. I think another thing that Zencode does is really work with social enterprises and
Yeah.
NGOs. Um, and the reason for that is really a passion to solve some of the issues that this world has. And for companies and charities that may not be able to afford our full spectrum of services. So we can at least help them move from Excel spreadsheets to something else, at least advise them on that. They shouldn't be spending their time on this sort of thing when they could be helping people out there. So that's what we want to do. So really, we're trying to find socially impactful startups that are socially conscious with those socially conscious founders that have business models that fit people best, so that we can empower them with the technology, and then they can grow. And in a way, I can be remembered for that as well. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm leaving this world in a worse shape than it is because AI will take over things. But how do we make sure people are prepared for that AI takeover? How do we move people into that better environment? I
Yeah.
think that's
And right now, looking at your initiatives you are doing, apart from whatever, or in fact, including what you are doing for Zencode, it is working towards making people understand about AI and be prepared for that.
yeah.
Great. Thank you, Benson. And
No worries.
is there any word of advice for business owners and our viewers who are currently engaged?
Sure. I mean, I spoke to a few different speakers in the past, and I remember some of the words of advice they gave. So there's this guy called Daniel Tu, who was the group CIO of Ping An Group in China. He started like 27 of the technology business units that Ping An currently has and transformed that business from an old school insurer to now the biggest insurance company in China. And I'm just setting the context here so you understand where his words are coming from. But he said, no company exists by itself now. Every company is in an ecosystem, and how you work together in that ecosystem is how you're all going to survive together. Because the future is going to be conglomerates. It's going to be like this group of companies offering this group of services, sharing this platform. And that's why when you have Ping An, you have Ping An Good Doctor, you have Ping An Insurance, you have Ping An this and Ping An that. And the customer never leaves their ecosystem, basically. In the same way, SMEs need to have that mindset of how do I create an ecosystem. Customer A, customer B can be serviced with maybe my partner who's doing something else. But we can share some services together, or we can have a loyalty system amongst each other, or we can do something like that. That's one mindset, creating an ecosystem. Another speaker I spoke to was Steve Melhush, who founded Property Guru. It's now a $600 million company valued at, with $85 million in revenue every year. And he's now stepped off from the day-to-day operations and is more doing impact investment. So when I spoke to him, he was saying that some things to note is the world is changing, mindsets are changing, people are being more aware of the environment around them, being more aware of social issues. As a business, it's hard to ignore that. You can't ignore that. So we also have to be socially conscious as business owners. We can't just run with the mindset that 20, 30 years ago it was okay to run a business that was pure profit. And now we have to think about how do we have sustainable profit? How do we have a sustainable company? These are things that matter in the long run. Yes, it may seem it's quite macro at the moment, but as SME owners, we definitely feel the knock-on effect as companies start asking, hey, are you sustainable? Are you sustainable? Before they add you to the supplier list. And that's inevitable as they also need to fulfill stronger and stronger ESG requirements. So yes, reality may seem far-fetched that as a business owner, we can think of sustainability, especially if we're small business, but the reality is also you may not have a business if you don't think sustainably. So I think that's another thing I'd like to. Yeah. So I think personally, from my perspective, as a business owner, I'd say that you have to be very aware that COVID-19 is here to stay, at least for the next year, until some vaccine is found. Second wave is definitely going to come, and I don't see that Singapore will not have a second lockdown. It probably will. Hong Kong, I think, will also have another lockdown, but that's inevitable. So be prepared for that. The other thing is COVID-19 has set a new normal, so be aware of that. Don't think that things will go back to normal after COVID-19. Yeah. Because a lot of businesses would have consolidated operations, had more digital processes behind whilst they were in COVID-19. And out of COVID-19, they'll be there taking customers from the left, right, center. So just got to be prepared for anything after COVID-19 where digital matters. People search online, people buy online, people will find out about you online as well. So if you don't have an online presence, now's the time.
Yeah. In fact, we saw that during the first phase or the first wave where, a lot of business got a shock when, during the lockdown or during the circuit breaker, and they, especially retailers, they found that, now I got to start looking at digital platforms and so on. So if they have the right mindset and they are able to see the new norm, is going to be a case where COVID-19 is going to be around. There's no point to be in denial or hope that things will be back to normal. So I think the key thing is it's never too late to start preparing if you have not started yet. I think that's the key, right? Rather than waiting for the second wave and get shocked again, right? So I think that's definitely an important point for a lot of business owners right now who have not started or at least thought about your transformation journey. I think it's all the more important. So so if Benson, if our viewers or any of the business owners would like to engage Zencode, can they just go up to your website to actually to engage you guys?
Sure. So our website is zencode.guru. But you can also find us on Facebook as well as LinkedIn. Just type Zencode Group and you'll be able to find us there.
Sure.
Yeah, and also, if at any time you need to reach out, I'm happy to speak to you. Just I'll leave my contact, or rather, uh, Sakti knows my contact, so he
Yeah.
can. Yep.
What I will do is that we will leave it in the chat comments as well, so that anyone who wants to contact Zencode, the website and the contact details will be there. So, or even the email address. So, any point of time, business owners, you want to know more, you want to find out more, feel free to approach Zencode, as well as even directly to Benson, so that you can find out more and start looking into your transformation journey itself. Yeah. With that, thank you so much, Benson. It was an awesome, 1 hour session, a lot of sharing. And I think what excited me more of all the things they've shared is, Failcon. I'm just waiting for my opportunity to come into one of those conferences and learn for myself.
You can start it in Singapore.
Yes. That would be the way ahead. Something that we will look into. We will definitely have a chat about that.
Yeah.
With that, thank you once again, Benson, and hope to see you soon. To our viewers, as I said, we will be leaving the details up on our chat. So feel free to contact Zencode or Benson any point of time that you think that there's some information they require. With that, thank you, Benson.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sakti.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right, we had an awesome session with Benson Lau, sharing done, and I think I myself got excited when Benson was talking about Failcon, learning from failures and so on. So I think feel free, as I said, that I will be leaving Benson's contact and the email address for or the website address for Zencode on our comment section. So feel free. So with that, right, no live chat is complete without you, the viewers. So thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me, and leave your comments and feedback so we can consistently do it better just for you. Now it's time to say goodbye, and take note that we'll be having our next live chat on Thursday, same time, and we'll be having Walter Myers, also a business owner, who will be sharing, he's from Belgium, and he'll be sharing a lot more with you. So feel free and join us on Thursday. So it's time to say goodbye. So remember, there was none before me and there will be none after me. So therefore, that makes me the one and only, yours truly, Shakti, and see you next week. So keep moving forward.